Al Jazeera International, our voice in the world.
This is the English service of Radio Algeria International. It's time for the news.
The President of the Republic has received the Chairman of the Tunisian Assembly of People's Representatives, Brahim Bouderbala. The Palestinian Health Ministry in Gaza has released the names of almost 7,000 Gazans killed so far by Israeli strikes since October 7, a day after U.S. President Joe Biden tried to cast doubt on the toll figures. And the head of the UN Agency for Palestinian Refugees, UNRWA, has warned that the Gaza Strip, which is under total siege and bombardments by the Israeli forces, is in urgent need of aid. Those were the headlines, and now the news in detail from Radio Algeria International. First, the President of the Republic, Mr. Abdelmadjid Tebboune, has received the Chairman of the Tunisian Assembly of People's Representatives, Brahim Bouderbala, according to a press release issued by the Presidency of the Republic here. The meeting took place in the presence of the President of the National People's Assembly, Brahim Boughali, and the Director of Cabinet at the Presidency of the Republic, Mohamed Nadir Al-Arbawi. Following his meeting with the President of the Republic, Brahim Bouderbala highlighted the convergence of views between the President of the Republic, Mr. Abdelmadjid Tebboune, and his Tunisian counterpart, Kais Saied, on issues of common interest, stressing the importance of establishing horizontal relations between the Algerian and Tunisian peoples at all levels. President Tebboune's analysis of the current situation and his forward-looking vision of Algerian-Tunisian relations reassure us about the present and future of the two countries, said the Tunisian official. Algeria, represented by the Deputy Chairman of the National People's Assembly, member of the High-Level Advisory Consultative Commission on Fighting Terrorism and Violent Extremism on the Interparliamentary Union, Mounder Boudan, has been elected to head the African Geopolitical Group at the IPU for 2023-2024 period, replacing Tanzania, said a press release issued by the APN. The IPU has chosen the theme of parliamentary work for peace, justice, and strong institutions for the general debate at this year's assembly held in Luanda, Angola. To the Palestinian file now, where the Palestinian Health Ministry in Gaza released the names of almost 7,000 Gazans killed so far by Israeli strikes since October 7, a day after U.S. President Joe Biden tried to cast doubt on the toll figures. The Health Ministry says at least 7,028 people have been killed and thousands of others injured in Gaza since Israel's bombing campaign on the besieged strip began 2 weeks ago, or almost three weeks ago. The release list contains the names of 6,747 victims, including their gender, age, and identity card number. It also highlighted that 281 bodies had not yet been identified. And the Minister of Foreign Affairs and the National Community Abroad, Ahmed Attaf, has said in New York that the dangerous developments in the occupied Palestinian territories call for collective action involving all the active and influential international players to bring about a just and lasting peace in the Middle East based on the principles of international legality. He reiterated Algeria's call for the brotherly state of Palestine to be granted full membership of the United Nations. Saad Bouhazi has more details.
In his address to the 10th Emergency Special Session of the UN General Assembly devoted to the Palestinian cause, Foreign Minister Ahmed Attaf expressed the thanks and gratitude of the Algerian delegation for the favorable response to the joint request of the two Arab and Muslim groups for the organization of this emergency special session, following the failure of the Security Council to rise to the rank of guarantor of the United Nations Charter and guardian of international peace and security. Ahmed Attaf deplored the failure of the Security Council to protect the Palestinian people, adding that today we are before this unifying UN body to make up for the Security Council's inability to guarantee the necessary protection to the Palestinian people and to put an end to the successive misfortunes that are befalling the tried, weeping and battered Gaza Strip.
Speaking before this inclusive United Nations body, to offset and compensate the Security Council's inability to afford the necessary protection to the Palestinian people and to confront all of the terrible things which are raining down on the Gaza Strip, which is mourning. Once again, we're having recourse to the General Assembly owing to the paralysis of the Security Council, the Security Council's inability to shoulder its responsibilities and obligations vis-à-vis the Palestinian cause, following its failure to act to dissuade the occupying power, Israel, to prevent its tyranny, its domination, its failure to protect civilians in Palestine, specifically in the Gaza Strip.
Once again, we are calling on the General Assembly as the Security Council is paralyzed, preventing it from fulfilling its responsibilities and obligations towards the Palestinian cause and from countering the Zionist occupier so that it ceases its tyranny and oppression of innocent people in Palestine, particularly in Gaza, the minister insisted. He recalled that a whole generation of Palestinians has not known the meaning of the peace process, has not seen any serious peace initiative to relaunch this process, and has not witnessed any international action to address their situation, nor their legitimate aspirations to recover their freedom and end the occupation of their land in order to establish their independent state. For Ahmed Attaf, the absence of a just and definitive settlement to the Palestinian cause mortgages the present and the future of peace, security and stability in this geographical area and in the region as a whole, affirming that the Palestinian people are fed up with the variable geometry policy, with the unjustified and unlimited complacency greatly enjoyed by the occupation, and with the inertia of the international community in the face of the oppression, injustice and tyranny to which they are subjected.
An entire generation hasn't seen a single serious initiative targeted towards getting back on that path. A whole generation of Palestinians which hasn't seen a single instance of international action geared towards addressing the situation, responding to their legitimate aspirations to restore their freedom, to put an end to the occupation of their land, allowing Palestinians to exercise their rights and create an independent state. Isn't it high time that we resolve this situation, which constitutes a violation of the values and principles our organization cherishes? Isn't it time that we put paid to this historical injustice which these people are being subjected to? People who can no longer continue fighting this haughty, arrogant, occupying power. Isn't it time that we start a large-scale international movement for peace, in the name of peace, a movement that can rekindle hope among Palestinians?
He also stressed that dealing with the dangerous developments in the occupied Palestinian territories, with all that this implies in terms of urgent action to put an end to the barbaric Zionist aggression against the Gaza Strip, to come to the aid of the Palestinian people and to guarantee them international protection, must lead to collective action involving all the influential and active international parties to build a just and viable peace in the Middle East on the basis of the principles of international law and the rule of law.
And the Minister of Foreign Affairs and the National Community Abroad, Ahmed Attaf, has been received in New York by the Secretary General of the United Nations, Antonio Guterres, as part of his working visit to the UN, according to a press release from the ministry. On this occasion, the two parties discussed the latest developments in the Palestinian cause, diplomatic efforts to halt the aggression against the Gaza Strip and deal with its humanitarian repercussions, and the need to relaunch the peace process in order to enshrine the legitimate national rights of the Palestinian people. Ahmed Attaf also held talks with his Jordanian counterpart Ayman Safadi, during which the two parties stressed the need to maintain political and diplomatic pressure to induce the UN to assume its responsibilities in protecting the Palestinian people living under the colonial yoke and to put an end to the brutal and inhuman Zionist aggressions against the besieged Gaza Strip. Also on Thursday, the Minister of Foreign Affairs and the National Community Abroad received a telephone call from his counterpart in the Sultanate of Oman, Badr al-Busaidi, with whom he discussed developments in the situation in the occupied Palestinian territories, particularly in the Gaza Strip, according to the same statement. During their participation in meetings of the standing committees and specialized workshops on the program of the 147th Assembly of the Inter-Parliamentary Union IPU, members of the two chambers of the Algerian Parliament have affirmed that the Zionist aggression against Gaza is state terrorism, which should be judged in line with international criminal law, according to a press release issued by the Council of the Nation on Thursday. The member of the Council of the Nation, Fouzia Benbadis, chaired a session of the Assembly on Thursday and took part in meetings of the committee in charge of Middle East issues, where she condemned the catastrophic and disastrous situation in Gaza from a humanitarian point of view in the context of the massacres of Palestinian civilians and the silence of the international community. Mundir Boudan, Deputy Chairman of the National People's Assembly and member of the High-Level Advisory Group on Combating Terrorism and Violent Extremism, condemned the dangerous escalation experienced by the brotherly Palestinian people, saying that the blatant violations committed by the Zionist entity are state terrorism through which it is trying to force all the oppressed to accept its justice or injustice, the occupation of their country, and the plundering of their wealth without thinking about liberation. The Minister of Religious Affairs and Waqfs or Endowments, Youssef Belmehdi, has said in the province of Bouarij that Algeria constantly stands by just causes, on top of which the Palestinian cause and oppressed people throughout the world. Addressing officials from his sector at the province headquarters, the minister added that the Algerian people are deeply saddened by the genocide being perpetrated in the Gaza Strip, reiterating Algeria's unchanging position towards Palestine, whether it is right or wrong. He recalled in this respect that French colonialism exercised all forms of tyranny over the Algerian people, who ultimately defeated it and regained their sovereignty. The same fate awaits the Palestinian people, who will triumph in their just cause. The Gaza Strip, which has been under total siege and bombardment by Israel since October 7, is in urgent need of aid, warned the head of the UN Agency for Palestinian Refugees, UNRWA, on Friday. During a press briefing in Al-Quds, Philip Lazzarini also said that his organization had confirmed the deaths of 57 of its employees in the Palestinian territory since the start of the war on Gaza. He warned that many people will soon die in the Gaza Strip because of the siege imposed by the Israeli army. As we speak, people in Gaza are dying, and not just from bombs and strikes. Many more will soon die as a result of the siege imposed on the Gaza Strip, said Philippe Lazzarani. Basic services are collapsing, medicines are running out, food and water are running out as well, he added. And the Palestinian Minister of Foreign Affairs and Expatriates, Riyad al-Maliki, has presented evidence to the International Criminal Court, ICC, of recent crimes committed by the Zionist occupation army against the Gaza Strip, calling on the ICC to urgently complete the criminal investigation in order to bring justice to the Palestinian victims. The details with our colleague Said Bougazi.
During his meeting with ICC prosecutor Karim Khan in The Hague, Palestinian Foreign Minister Riyad al-Maliki called for the protection of the Palestinians, underlining that the crimes committed by the Zionist occupation and its leaders were due to a lack of accountability, according to the Palestinian news agency Wafa. To this end, he urged the ICC to complete the criminal investigation as a matter of urgency and to render justice to the victims of the Palestinian people following the Zionist aggression still ongoing against the Gaza Strip, informing the court of the scale of the destruction and murders of children, women and civilians perpetrated by the occupying forces without responsibility or accountability. The head of the Palestinian diplomacy also underlined the role of the ICC and its prosecutor, notably at this time in bringing Zionist war criminals to international justice for their systematic policies, calling on ICC prosecutor Karim Khan to also examine the ongoing crimes of the occupation in the occupied West Bank, including Al-Quds, premeditated murders, arbitrary arrests, demolition of property, etc., perpetrated by settlers and the Zionist occupation army against Palestinian civilians. For his part, the Attorney General quoted by WAFA confirmed that the situation in Palestine, including the recent developments in Gaza, is a subject of a criminal investigation and that its independent role and the transparency of the investigation are the basis for obtaining justice. The previous day, Mr. El-Maliki had submitted the Palestinian state's second written plea to the Registrar of the International Court of Justice, ICJ, with a view to ruling on the nature of the Zionist occupation and determining the appropriate means to combat this illegal system.
And the European Union leaders have called for humanitarian corridors and pauses in the conflict to help the inhabitants of the besieged Gaza Strip, which has been shelled relentlessly for the past 20 days or so by the Zionist occupation army. On Thursday, the Palestinian resistance movement, Hamas, estimated that nearly 50 hostages had been killed in the Zionist strikes on the Gaza Strip. According to Hamas, more than 7,000 people have been killed in Zionist bombardments since October 7, mostly civilians, including about 3,000 children. And the Palestinian Minister of Public Works and Housing, Mohammed Ziara, has said that around 200,000 homes have been totally or partially demolished since the Zionist occupation army began bombing Palestinians in the Gaza Strip on October 7, representing more than 25% of the populated areas in the sector. The criminality of the Zionist occupier in the current aggression, added Mohammed Ziara, is unprecedented, indicating that the Zionist bombardments have erased entire families from the civil register, wiped out neighborhoods, areas, and residential communities with their inhabitants. Facilities were also demolished and destroyed, including hospitals, places of worship, bakeries and water filling stations, markets, schools, educational establishments, and services. And in the Western Sahara file, the British Parliamentary Under Secretary of State, Office of Foreigners, Commonwealth and Development, David Rotley, has reiterated Britain's support for the UN-led political process and the efforts of the UN Secretary General's personal envoy to Western Sahara, Staffan de Mistura, to achieve a political solution to the Sahrawi question. Said Bouazi reports again.
The British Parliamentary Under Secretary of State said in response to a question in the British Parliament on the Sahrawi issue that the UK strongly supported the work of Staffan de Mistura and welcomed his visit in September 2023 to the region, including Western Sahara. The Conservative MP also said that his country would continue to encourage the constructive engagement of the parties to the conflict in the political process. Responding to another question on the UK's position on human rights violations by Morocco in the occupied Sahrawi territories, David Rotley underlined that his country has always been committed to the promotion and protection of human rights around the world, including in Western Sahara. He said that the UK has always supported the relevant UN Security Council resolutions which encourage the parties to continue their efforts to strengthen the promotion and protection of human rights in Western Sahara, including the freedoms of expression and association. This statement comes a few days after the Moroccan occupying forces repressed and attacked Sahrawi human rights activists and defenders in occupied La'yun, banning their gatherings. This prompted several Sahrawi organizations to call on the international community to set up a mechanism to monitor the state of human rights in the occupied territories.
And with this last piece of news, we come to the end of this news bulletin in English for today. Time now for our special program devoted to the situation in the Gaza Strip. A brief or an interview compiled and presented by my colleague Asya Bakar with the representative of UNRWA. And with this, we come to the end of it. As I said before, we'll meet you again tomorrow for a fresh edition of our news bulletin in English. Until then, stay tuned to Radio Algeria International, and bye-bye for now.
Hello, dear listeners, and welcome on our waves. Today we have with us on the phone Mr. Adnan Abu Hasna, who is UNRWA media advisor and spokesperson. Mr. Adnan, you're joining us from the besieged Gaza. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you.
I would like to start the interview by expressing condolences as tens of your colleagues were unfortunately killed in the Israeli attacks.
Yes, we have nearly 36 from our colleagues that have been killed since the start of the escalation on 7th of October. But we believe that the number is higher than that because of the huge destruction, and there's no ability actually to remove the rubble. And so we believe we may have a higher number of colleagues who had been killed during this escalation.
Mm-hmm. In addition to the pain of losing your colleagues who are doing humanitarian work in the Gaza Strip, how do such crimes affect humanitarian work in Gaza?
There is a clear message that there is no safe place in Gaza. Everyone is exposed to be attacked any moment. Despite that we are in UN installations, we have the blue flag, hovering over our buildings. We are sending all the GPS to Israeli authority twice a day, so that no one can tell us that after that they attacked us mistakenly. But unfortunately, that we have been attacked. Nearly 40 of our installations have been, hit directly or indirectly, and we have also 14 of displaced people have been killed in our schools, and nearly 200 have been injured. So it's a clear message that you are in Gaza, whether if you are in your installation or you are in the street or the hospital and everywhere, you might be attacked without any warning.
Mm-hmm. So could you give us an overview on the current humanitarian situation in the Gaza Strip?
It's clear that we are heading toward a real catastrophe in the Gaza Strip. That we don't have fuel, and according to the statement of UNRWA Commissioner General, that the fuel for our operation will finish, after 48 hours from now. So it means that our operation will be suspended. It means that no fuel for bakeries, no fuel for desalination plants, no fuel for sewage system, no fuel for hospitals. So I believe if there will be no fuel coming into Gaza today or after tomorrow, it means that we are heading towards a real catastrophe in the Gaza Strip. We have a real problem in drinkable water. People are drinking, dirty water directly from water wells without any treatment because of the lack of electricity, lack of fuel. Mm-hmm. Also, food is, fading out from, the market in Gaza, and you can see lines of hundreds of meters on the bakers. People are, waking up very early in the morning to go in line, to get some bread. And for hospitals also, the sector, the health sector, even, suffering a lot even before the military operation, before the escalation. And Gaza used to send their patients to Egypt, West Bank, and Jordan. And all the time, the health sector and hospitals, they were at the edge of collapsing all the time. So now, how can they cope with thousands of people that have been killed and more than 16,000 that have been injured? They don't have the capabilities or the capacity to cope what is going on. Their lack of everything, lack of medicine, lack of instruments, lack of technical experience also. They don't have.
Mr. Adnan, 3 convoys of total 54 trucks entered Gaza since Saturday through the Rafah border crossing, carrying water, food and medicine, but no fuel, as you said earlier. And also these products are not enough. They cannot meet the necessities of the people in Gaza. What is your comment on that? And how many convoys or trucks should carry products to at least meet the minimum of the needs of the of Gazans?
Yeah, we are welcoming, the opening of Rafah crossing point to get, humanitarian need into Gaza. But, they are sending now 20 trucks, 15 trucks per day, and it's like a drop in the ocean. Mm-hmm. The humanitarian need is huge. What we need more than 100 trucks per day, so we can cope what is going on. We are not talking about the quality of life in Gaza. We just talk about life, any life. We want to keep people surviving. This is the mission. Now we need fuel to get into Gaza. We need medicine. We need mattresses, blankets. We need everything. We need everything. But to get on daily paid, like 20 trucks and 14 trucks, I think it's not enough. We need to accelerate the process, to accelerate also to increase the number of trucks with different types of needs, in medicine and food and water and non-food items also, and everything.
Mm-hmm. Of course. So, Mr. Adnan, the world has witnessed the Israeli flagrant bombings of hospitals, killing hundreds of people, including patients and medical staff, in addition to humanitarian staff, as you just said. How does that add to the already dire humanitarian crisis?
I think that after 48 hours, we will be facing first catastrophe. It will be in the no interest of anyone. The Israel Palestinians regionally, and we are talking now about 2.3 million Palestinians. That's where they are facing a catastrophe that they never faced before. They never expected something like that, especially hospitals. Now they are working on generators only, and the generators will stop after 48 hours, maximum 72 hours, and after that there will be no ability to treat or to receive injured or 12 people or ordinary sick people that they have no place now. There is no place for them now. Yeah.
Mr. Adnan, why, in your opinion, is the United Nations incapable of making the Israeli army stop the bombings for humanitarian purposes, or at least stop bombing hospitals, homes, and schools?
Look, we are communicating with everybody. The United Nations, the SD, Mr. Guterres, the Commissioner General of UNRWA, Philippe Lazzarini, and with the Egyptian, the Jordanian, regionally, with the EU, with everybody, that we need help. We need a humanitarian corridor for food, for aid, humanitarian aid. We need that. You have to assist us, to help us, and we cannot imagine that after a few days that we see everything stopped in Gaza. This war must stop immediately, because the suffering is huge, and no one can bear, especially civilians, and they need protection. There is a law for every war that the civilian must be protected, the civilian must be provided what their needs, like treatment, like water, like food. This is the normal thing in the world. But now nothing like that, happening. I believe that we are heading towards something unprecedented, and it will be huge, and it will be a very catastrophic moment in the very soon, I believe.
Mm-hmm. Mr. Adnan, now that we said that the ceasefire is urgent and it should immediately be imposed, can you make a call for ending this flagrant genocide?
We call all parties, everyone who has influence, that we need a ceasefire. We need, to get. We need a humanitarian corridor. We need people. We need to get food and medicine and fuel before seeing people starving, dying, and before seeing hospitals, collapsing, and everything now at the brink of collapse, and we must know that.
Thank you so much for joining us from Gaza, Mr. Adnan Abu Hasna.
Thanks.
Despite the current challenging situation in the enclave, please stay safe, and we hope to talk to you again in better conditions for you and for all Palestinians.
Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.